Hello and welcome everybody. Welcome back to Comedian MTG. My name is Ian, and today we're breaking down the top 16 of Ka0s Treasure Series 9. Now, this is actually also the top 17 because we had a strange situation where someone qualified for the top 16, and because they were in a very, very different European time zone, they fell asleep. So the 17th player actually made the top 16 and ironically made the top 4. So yeah, a little messy. We got 17 decks for you to cover here today. If you like videos like this, make sure to hit like and subscribe over on YouTube. Helps out the channel a ton. And check out patreon.com/comedianmtg if you're interested in supporting the channel in any sort of way, or if you're interested in cEDH coaching, which we can cover a little bit later in this episode. Thank you to Wizards of the Coast for sponsoring this video. If you're interested in some Ravnica Remastered product, there will be a link down below where you can find out a little bit more about that. We have our 16/17th place deck here with Blue Farm by Juggernaut Scott 2. We have Tymna and Crom here. This is a pretty classic Blue Farm list here, with displays getting to Fairylands, which definitely picked up after I was able to bring them to our Crimson Lion tournament down in Texas. Very interesting to have that as well be in this list. It's actually a very similar list to the one that I brought to that tournament, although this list is on Dress Down and not on the Grim Monolith, which I tend to like in this list. On Snapback as well. Okay, so there's definitely a number of cards. And Angel's Grace, which is a card I've been actually higher and higher on as I've been playing more cEDH in the current metagame. Split Seconds, kind of busted. Opponents are really going for it, going pretty all in for a lot of these win attempts, and Angel's Grace can be an insane blowout, but you got to play it in the right deck, so it's not just sort of a random dead card. Apart from that, this is pretty classic Blue Farm, 4-color, good stuff, soup of the format, and definitely able to push in some wins, so congrats. Tale of Legends here by Kilgore. This is Sisay cEDH. You can tell already by this Planeswalker package here that this is not your Father Sisay list. We have no Nicol Bolas, Amanatu, or Oath of Teferi lines here in this Sisay list. Instead, we've got some other stuff going on. So this list is running like the One Ring, some interesting interaction pieces here with stuff like Calamity's Wake, and some definitely unique legends in here. We got things like Zur the Enchanter, which can go grab, some of your artifacts like Ristic Study and things like that. But this is a freed from the real Sisay list, it seems, which would make sense. It can go off with things like Bloom Tender. We have Savala stuff. So you have your Meal Dockside lines, that stuff stays the same. We also have, once again, Bloom Tender lines with freed from the real. Technically speaking, Birds of Paradise or Noble Hierarch plus Kinnan and Freed from the Real also is a win condition, and Sanctum Weaver here, also a win condition with Freed from the Real. We have Drevi plus Emil lines with Gaia's Cradle. Wow, this is definitely a really unique Sisay list. I've been kind of saying that about Sisay, where like people keep finding very unique, different ways to play the list, and it can still come up to a cEDH tournament and perform pretty consistently. I also think Relic of Legends plus Magda is a combo there, as well as Freed from the Real actually too, because you're able to tap and untap these cards. Oh, so I guess Relic of Legends is not a combo with Magda, but Freed from the Real plus Magda is a combo where you can make infinite mana by, because you need, okay, here we go. Here's the combo. It's Magda plus either Asika or Relic of Legends, so that Magda can tap for mana, right? Then you're making a treasure every time that's happening, and that is able to generate infinite mana with those cards there. I guess Asika is also Freed from the Real plus Kinnan enabler, and I guess any of your Legends plus Freed from the Real plus Kinnan are enablers with Relic of Legends or Asika, which is pretty interesting. There's a lot of layered ways of like Freed from the Real comboing off for infinite mana, which is pretty cool. Definitely, I think a thing a lot of players are not expecting. With Drownland Volley here, I always find it really hard to cast in Sisay, but if you can cast it, the card's kind of insane. Having to see Kite-Tail Larcenist starting to pick up play, the card's very, very strong for sure. But yeah, this is definitely a unique Sisay list, playing way more enchantments than I'm used to in this archetype, and doing some pretty unique stuff with a lot of untapping and tapping shenanigans here. Pretty cool. We have Rocked the Dinner Rush by Vice Games. We have Rocco Cabaret Cater here. Rocco, a deck that's been kind of quiet for quite some time. This list is kind of one of these bigger Rocco lists that I think are positioned pretty decently in the format right now. The idea being like you're already pumping a bunch of mana into Rocco to kind of make your game plan work. So why not also have a bunch of these higher end cards, right? So we have our Kiki Jiki lines here. You're going up from Felidar to Karmic to Kiki to winning the game through those lines in particular, either through Birthing Pod or through Vivian on the hunt. You also have your Squee plus Food Chain, infinite mana stuff going on here in this list. We got One Ring as usual, but it's normal stuff. We have Cloudstone Courier lines, which I don't feel like I traditionally see a lot of in this archetype, but then you have Dockside plus Saber's Tooth as well. Emil plus Dockside is kind of interesting because if you have a Rocco already on the battlefield, Emil plus Dockside doesn't actually win the game. But if Rocco is not on the battlefield, Emil plus Dockside does win the game because you can play Rocco, go get like a Querying Range or something like that, and then proceed to bounce Rocco over and over to the rest of your deck. So Emil Dockside does work a lot of the time with this deck, but not every single time. Vishali Wayfinder, one of the classic Rocco staples here, definitely a classic Rocco card, and very, very powerful in this list. You have Gandalf here for a lot of these instant speed Rocco tutoring up legends to be able to flash in win cons kind of lines. It's pretty cool to go for the Gandalf lines. I know I play a lot with Surreal, who was the person who won the Play to Win 64-person cEDH tournament, and I see a lot of these Gandalf lines coming out of their archetype as well, which also gives Twin Shot Sniper the ability to flash in too, because it's an artifact. So I'm pretty sure that's actually one of the ways you win with the deck is like getting Emil Dockside and Twin Shot, be able to infinitely flicker that and deal 2 to your opponents. So all in all, pretty cool to see Rocco kind of come back from a very quiet hiatus of not really seeing it in this format. Silver lining here with He Who Must Not Be Named, we have a Korvold list here, and unless I'm mistaken, this is the ad nauseum list Korvold list that we've covered here on the channel before. So this is another rendition of this Korvold variant, doing a lot of crazy sacrifice stuff here, and it's actually more about like the combos that come out of this variant. So we have things like Freebooter and Impulsive Pilferer and, Shambling Ghast and where's the Squirrel? Or is the Squirrel in this deck anymore? I guess not. There was a Squirrel that was the one that died. Or I guess it was a thing that made squirrels. But anyways, you have a bunch of sacrifice outlets and things that generate basically Korvold triggers when they die. Things like Pitiless Plunderer help to really convert these all into combos. And then you have all of these sacrifice synergies. You get Korvold out, and then this is the deck that definitely converts Korvold to like, oh, I'm definitely winning the game extremely quickly because, hey, look at all these sacrifices, and you're able to do a crazy amount of stuff there. As of last time we talked about this deck, I didn't know why Zombie Infestation is there. Basically, it's a way to put cards into your graveyard after you draw the majority of your deck. It's got a bunch of different crazy lines. So yeah, there's the whole write-up about how to do this stuff. And then there's obviously like Ashnod's Altar, Phyrexian Altar stuff, going through all the synergies with Sacrifice that we talked about before. And there's Underworld Breach lines in this list. Not necessarily like clean breach lines, but more so like you're doing all the sacrificing and graveyard manipulation and all of that stuff that it sort of helps convert you to an actual win. Wins are probably like a lot through the Goblin Bombardment, things like that, making infinite mana, drawing the majority of your deck kind of stuff that we're seeing here through a lot of these sacrifice pieces. So pretty cool to see this, as I mentioned, like non-traditional Korvold list continue to put up results for this tournament. So congrats to Silver Lining for multiple results with this pretty atypical Korvold list. Mystery Boyfriend by Ganeshaha. We have Ganesh here, very frequent blue farm player. Been playing this deck in a lot of these Chaos tournaments and doing pretty decently with them. Top 16, I think they won a tournament pretty recently, and yeah, been doing very well with this list. We have Teferi No Kitten line here. Once again, love Teferi in the 99, even without Kitten in this deck. We've Dauntless Dismantler's new pickup, Containment Priest as one of the ways to hit on some of the greener decks in the format for sure. Born Upon the Wind here, one of the newest additions to this deck. No Final Fortune, which is pretty interesting. I guess it's as opposed to playing both, which I know a lot of folks are on nowadays. Born is taking the priority here in this version of the deck. No One Ring in this version of the deck, no Talion in this version of the deck. So definitely a little bit more into the Tymna and Crom plan for this list. Keeping the mana value of the deck a little bit lower, your Nazes are a little bit better and stuff like that. So definitely a lean, clean blue farm list. Hero Rule is our top 16 player who made the top 16 and then unfortunately fell asleep. So yeah, they are one of the primer authors for Magda, and actually got to play with them in the Swiss of the tournament. They're very, very competent Magda player and someone who definitely should be respected playing this deck. Got a lot of crazy stuff here with this Magda list. You have all your normal artifact combos, right? You have your artifact dwarfs with combined with your Clock of Omens to be able to generate infinite treasures and tutor all the cards from your deck. Basically, your Portal to Phyrexia being an insane payoff. Same thing with God Pharaoh Statue. When I actually played our Swiss round against Ira had Portal and Sculpting Steeled a second copy of Portal, and I actually had a copy of Portal as well to be able to wipe Ira's board, and it was just one of the sloggiest games in the entire world because every upkeep we were reanimating creatures and trying to get copies of Portal Phyrexia, and it was a crazy game to say the very least. It was insane. But yeah, a lot of crazy dwarf synergies. We have Roaming Throne being one of the newest pickups here, and being able to double all the Magda triggers, not only the treasures that are created off of Magda, but you can actually double the activations to tutor for Magda. So Roaming Throne, very strong in this deck. We have our Magus and Blood Moon effects to be able to hate on some of the non-monocolored decks in the format. And a lot of stacks to be able to slow down the game and, keep your dwarf clock up to the rest of the table. Cheese Goria, one of the newer, Brother War Commander decks, not that new at this point, but definitely one of the pieces not all Magda decks have adapted, but very good at getting your card advantage for this type of deck for sure. I'm always a little disappointed more Magda decks don't play Cloudstone Curio in them, just because it feels so free to me to be able to have Dockside Cloudstone combos in the list to just be able to go off without the normal Magda stuff. And that way, if Magda costs 10, which people really hate on Magda in certain instances of this deck, that's a combo that's sort of agnostic of your commander eventually, right? So yeah, Ira, good job on top 16 in this tournament. Sorry you couldn't play it out. We have No Sunlight at the bottom, Gyruda by Nibar. Nibar has been showing up and pushing for this Gyruda deck pretty frequently. I believe they they made top cut at the cEDH qualifier for the Mox Masters Invitational, and I did play them in the Swiss of that tournament. This Gyruda deck terrifies the heck out of me. Nibar is definitely an expert in it, and hearing them talk about the list is very interesting. Now that I'm seeing the list, when we were playing the game during the Swiss, I was so afraid of one resolution of Gyruda just basically converting to a win, but this list is definitely feels very pared down compared to how the deck used to be. I feel like the amount of one Gyruda activations converting to a win, I felt like we're way higher with this deck, but this one playing a lot more of the value clones. Deadeye Navigator, obviously very easy to convert to wins with this deck. Same thing with Tidespout Tyrant, flip and reanimate those. Massacre Worm can be a very good value flip. Ruthless Technomancer is sort of like a clone in the sense that you play it, sack your Gyruda, make 6 treasures, and then probably cast it again, or worst case scenario, have it set up for you to cast it next turn. But yeah, Nibar's been doing very well with this deck, and definitely makes it very threatening. It's super interesting to see play. I love seeing the Heartless summoning deck. It's so cool. Yeah, you're okay, sure, Gyruda's a 5/5, but it only costs 4, so get ready. This is going to get out of hand real quick. But yeah, Roaming Throne definitely helps to convert these one-shot Gyrudas into actually winning the game. But yeah, I definitely think it was interesting playing against this deck, and now knowing that there's only 24 creatures in the deck, and only about 20 something creatures that continue the Gyruda chain. Whereas I felt like it was a lot higher in earlier iterations of this deck, but it's so sick. This was a deck I was really excited about brewing and bringing to a tournament before Nibar showed up and did really well with it. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I don't really have to brew this deck anymore because a bunch of folks are working on it now. But it's pretty sick and definitely a unique cEDH deck, right? This sort of all-in commander combo strategy with a bunch of high value cards in the 99 is pretty unique, especially when it comes to something like Gyruda, which is an ex-companion. Smalls here with Timing is Everything. Smalls being the player who topped forward with this Heliod list as one of the most recent Treasure Series events. I believe it was actually the last one. Very competent Heliod player. They were in our top 16 match and unfortunately kept a hand with 1 land and then literally never drew a land again, which stunk because we could have used them for that a couple of those turns there moving through this tournament. But it was unfortunate to see their run with the deck go to kind of a sad end because they're very good at playing this deck. They're very good at really just catching you off guard with all the things that Heliod can do when it comes to flashing things in response. It's one of the toughest parts about the deck is that if you don't get the engine going, the deck can fizzle really hard. But when the engine's going, it's really hard to even attempt to present a win with this deck because you don't know what your opponent can have, and they could be flashing in some of these really crazy pieces to be able to stop you, right? Like you can have like 5 cards left in your deck and they can, you know, you've drawn a bunch of cards this turn and they can prosperity for like 10 and then, you know, make you deck yourself, right? So you really don't know with this deck all of the crazy stuff that it can do at instant speed, and it's definitely a really unique Azorius list, and it's not easy to pilot at all, right? It is very hard and difficult to pilot correctly, and our Smalls pilot here has been doing quite well with it. So congrats on the top 16. A Bond Between Prodigies by Butterbread81. We have this Kinnan list here. I always like to check the amount of lands in Kinnan. Yeah, 25, 26 land here. So quite, in my opinion, a little similar to what Wounded Satellite is working with, and we'll actually be able to compare those two later because here's a hint, he's in this tournament. But this is pretty classic Kinnan stuff. We have our Infinite Mana Basalt Monolith stuff. We have the Perplexing Chimera lines. We have Manglehorn here, all-star of the format at this point. Genuinely, it's so good. We have a bunch of different value cards in here, and I believe this was one of my other opponents I did play in the top 16 of this tournament. But yeah, this is pretty classic mid-range Kinnan that we've been seeing a lot of as of lately. Definitely one of the best decks in the format, and continuing to do very well in the hands of multiple different pilots. So congrats to Butterbread on the performance with this list. We have Temujin and DX Reaper. This is Temujin's performance here in this tournament, but this is Francisco Thrasios, the most hyped bird, turning out to actually put up a top result here in this tournament. Definitely not what I was expecting from this event for sure, but we have Thrasios plus Francisco. So this deck is very much like similar to Kai's Thrasios Miara list in the sense that it's kind of like turbo Sultai Thrasios stuff. This list is definitely running a little bit more interaction than I would say Kai's list was. We have Devoted Druid and Machine God's Effigy lines here for infinite mana. We have Basalt Monolith plus Kinnan into Thrasios activations, that combo. We obviously have our Agatha Soul Cauldron plus Walking Ballista plus Francisco combo, for those who don't know how that works, because it's still a relatively new combo. You use Soul Cauldron to exile Ballista, giving Francisco Ballista's ability, because Francisco says whenever it deals damage to a player, it explores. What'll happen is if you do not have a land on top of your library, you reveal the top card of your library, and if it's not a land, you put a 1/1 counter on Francisco, right? So you remove the counter to deal 1 damage to an opponent. The Explorer ability triggers. Once again, if you have a land, the land goes in your hand, you don't put the counter on Francisco, the combo fizzles. So it's a little clunky, which is why a lot of people are not a huge fan of this Ballista combo, apart from, you know, some card quality issues as far as the combo is concerned as well. But then, you know, if it is not a land, once again, you're able to just do infinite damage to your opponents by assembling basically 2 cards plus your commander, which is really nice about the Ballista specifically, because you can pay X = 0, right? And just take it from your hand and put it in the graveyard, which is, you know, one part of the combo immediately right there. So if you have both combo pieces just in your hand as opposed to one in the graveyard, one in your hand, it's a pretty easy fix as far as that's concerned. Apart from that, there's a lot of Sultai good stuff, I would say. It's definitely a very just you know, Sultai pile of good stuff with some pretty cool unique combos doing the Francisco stuff. Definitely a lot less proactive pieces than the list I compared to earlier, than the Miara list, right? There's no Dosan, there's no defense grid, there's no stuff like that. So this list may be running a little bit more interaction, a little bit more responsible than some of the Thrasios Miara list we talked about before. We have Sylvie's here with Cooking Combos, another Rocco list here showing up for the top 16. Once again, you know, Rocco's been sort of on a hiatus, and here we have another version of this list. You know, also immediately you're noticing Cloudstone Curio again in this deck. We have Temur Sabertooth, no Emil in this version of the list, which, you know, we talked about that previously. We have Witty Roastmaster as a way to convert infinite creatures to infinite damage. You know, so for example, if you assemble a Kiki-Jiki line post second main phase, or during your second main phase post combat, we have Squee plus Food Chain stuff, which is a nice, you know, Witty Roastmasters kind of makes a lot of these combos really nice and clean as far as that's concerned. We have Starved Rusalka here. For 1 green sack creature, you gain a life. This is a sack outlet for our Academy Rector and our Arena Rector. You know, instead of Quirion Ranger, which you see a lot in these Rocco lists, we have this Rusalka. So you play Rocco, sack it to the Rusalka, put it back in the command zone. You do have to pay command attacks. So there's a bit of a downside when it comes to that version of this card, right? But then once again, you have a sack outlet that you can easily get for your Rectors, and that converts them to wins, because either you get Vivian with your Arena Rector, or the Academy Rector goes and gets your Food Chain 90% of the time, and then sometimes I can imagine it gets Survival of the Fittest or something like that. to be able to assemble some of those kiki-jiki combos and put those together in this list. But we also Greater Argadon as the other sack outlet in this deck. I don't think they're on Bombardment or anything like that. Yeah. The other sack outlet, I guess, would be like Birthing Pod, but that's not really a sack outlet as much as it is just a combo piece on its own. But this list is pretty cool. Glad to see Rocco's coming back. I missed Rocco, to be honest. I think it's a really cool deck. I don't know if this is just like it's better in the Chaos meta or if it's just kind of back and ready to do some good stuff in cEDH. We have Dargi Hungi here by Snazzerific. This is a Thrasios Dargo mid-range list. We have a lot of the classic Thrasios Dargo stuff. So for those who don't know, Thrasios Dargo can combo with the Stiff Breeze. It can Neoform or Eldritch Evolution or Birthing Pod into Tidespout Tyrant, which then can convert to infinite mana that can go through Thrasios. Burgi plus Dargo plus a sack outlet is Infinite Cast of Dargo. Plus Relic of Legends is the ability to net infinite mana, infinite red mana specifically. With Altered Dementia, you just recast Dargo forever and mill your opponents out. A lot of different ways to just convert Dargo into a straight up win as far as recasting it over and over again. Obviously, Greater Good, one of the best cards in the Dargo archetype, right? To be able to sacrifice Dargo to draw 7, discard 3, and then play it again out of your command zone for only a single red mana enables a lot of combo turns. And, we just talked about the Burgi or the Relic of Legends stuff, right? You get to a point where you can play Dargo, sack it, draw 7, discard 3, play it again because you're playing it, tapping it for the relic, or playing it through Burgi. Able to draw through a very large portion of your deck by playing that. And then the rest of the deck is sort of catered around being this like teamer mid-range style deck. Interesting to see cards like Shusher and Dosen in the same list. I feel like they're different kinds like teamer, but definitely a lot of similar stuff there. Plus we have Displacer Kitten things here. You Imp Recruiter for your Kitten, flicker your Imp Recruiter, go get Dockside, flicker it again, get Spellseeker, and then hopefully you have a Lotus Petal to let that loop go through with Eternal Witness and things like that. But we have the Dargo, we have the Sabretooth and Dockside lines as well for infinite mana that way. But yeah, this deck's been doing pretty consistently through a number of different pilots now. For a while there was a handful of pilots kind of just playing this deck over and over again, but now we're starting to see a few more pilots pick up this Teamer Dargo list. We have my Derevi list here, my precious. I am doing a full breakdown of this deck, which I will leave a link to. We have Beta Z here with You Vote, I Win, our 17th place player who got inducted into the top 16 with the lack of presence of Irurul and made it to the top 4. Actually ended up being the winner of our top 16 pod and played this Tivit list. So very, very solid Tivit list. Definitely controlling Esper list, seeing Tishana's Tidebinder and Dauntless Dismantler being the new pickups from the Lost Caverns of Ixalan. Apart from that, it's a lot of the same mid-range Tivit stuff that we're pretty used to at this point, although one thing kind of huge about this version of the deck is that there is no Displacer Kitten or 3 mana Teferi in this deck, which is something that's very surprising to me because I've been really, really happy with that line in this deck. So very, very surprised to not see it in here. We have things like Lightning Greaves too for protecting Tivit. I know Tivits nowadays are definitely eating a lot more interaction than they used to, so that part definitely makes a ton of sense. This is a very controlling, slower Tivit list, running a few less win cons and a few more engines, and yeah, that's quite surprising to once again see a Kittenless Tivit list, but made it all the way to the top 4 of this video. Nice. We have Good Soup by Freedom Waffle. Freedom Waffle doing pretty well lately with this Tymna Kraum Blue Farm list. Definitely known for playing Boromir in this archetype, something he's been very high on about protecting own combos, while the ability to sacrifice out on like something like Lavinia. At one point there was Phyrexian Metamorph in this list, doesn't seem to be in the list anymore, nor any flesh duplicates, now just on Fimage as far as clone effects. Very lean creature package in the deck, only 13 creatures, one of them being Simian Spirit Guide, definitely low to the ground. No One Ring, no Talion. As I mentioned, definitely a leaner type of ad nauseam strategy here with this deck. We do have Final Fortune and a Born Upon the Wind. Definitely a few more tempo pieces here with this Blue Farm deck. And yeah, definitely really, as I said, low to the ground style Blue Farm list, able to cleanly perform and do pretty well with this deck. Freedom Waffle's been doing well with Blue Farm, and yeah, being a good pilot pickup, arguably one of the better decks in the format, definitely leads to some positive results. We have Wounded Satellite here with this Grind Them into Dust Kinnan mid-range control list. We talked about Wounded a good amount because they're a very good Kinnan player, and showing up here with his Kinnan list, doing it again. Nothing super crazy. I think since the last time we talked about this deck on the channel, you know, at one point there were some innovations with things like transfer and stuff like that, but the list has kind of been very similar, if not the same, for a little bit of time. Still very surprised by Chain to Vapor in this deck. It always makes me nervous with so many large creatures. But apparently it's not that bad of a downside if you just wanted to play it for multiple tournaments for sure. Yeah, this is it's a pretty clean cannon list. Wounded is known for doing well with this deck, and will probably continue to do so. It's a very consistent, clean deck, and for pilots who know what they're doing, it's very good. You know, it's I think the deck I represented most in tournaments this year, and each and every time it at least got me to the top 16, if not won me the tournament. So definitely. Not surprised to see Kinnan continually doing well. We have Sean Angel here with Korvold. My only loss in the Swiss of this tournament went and took down the entire thing. This is a pretty classic Korvold compared to our other Korvold that we saw earlier in this tournament. The other Korvold was much more of the sacrifice-based synergies. This Korvold is all in foot on the gas pedal Korvold, right? This is a turbo Dockside deck. We actually saw in our game in the Swiss, you know, what happens if you feed a Dockside too much, right? The Dockside got fed for 6 in Korvold, and Sean was able to play Dockside and then saw in half the Dockside going up to 12 treasures. And at that point, the game was basically over. You know, you have your defense grids and your Dosans as the way to be able to protect your combo turns. You have Necropotence and Underworld Breach to be able to dig you down. You have Animate Dead and Necromancy to be able to basically reanimate your Docksides after you sacrifice them, doing all that crazy stuff. I saw Technomancer when Korvold was up to like 20 power in the list. Sean was able to play it, sack Korvold, make all of those treasures, and be able to pop off that way, which was pretty insane. And then be able to go off through like Dockside Technomancer stuff. It was very, very cool to see the deck be able to pop off like that. It's super explosive. Korvold is a deck that is really good against certain archetypes, right? Definitely really good against some of the faster decks in the format, as it punishes their very accelerated game plans very, very well, and the green protection is very solid. It doesn't survive as well if you respect the Dockside count, and it's definitely the biggest downside of the deck is a low Dockside count, means the deck does not nearly do as much in the pod. But you know, at the end of the day, Jund ad nauseum stuff with some Dockside powerful synergies in the command zone leads to win. So congrats to Sean on the win with this deck that is, you know, traditionally not looked at as one of the better decks of the format. And you know, a lot of players who had doubts about this deck are definitely seeing that it has the ability to take it all the way. I know also there was a Korvold list that did very well recently at the Pacific Northwest Championship for cEDH, which was a smaller tournament, but it's still in like the 60s as far as attendance. So, you know, multiple tournaments being taken down by Korvold, and maybe it's time to reevaluate our take on this deck, or maybe it's time to reevaluate our way we're playing around Dockside with Korvold in the pods. It really depends on on the pods and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, Korvold's a deck that will immediately punish certain play patterns, and sometimes if people get too comfortable with certain patterns of play, right, they need decks like this to come in and immediately make them regret it, right? So Korvold is a very powerful card at punishing certain patterns of play, and Dockside being a powerful card makes this deck very, very strong. So well done, Sean, on your run with this deck. And that concludes our top 16 here for Treasure Series 9, top 17 technically. What was the most interesting deck y'all saw from this tournament? You know, I'm a little biased in this one, and I'm really happy with my Drevi list, but gotta shout out things like Heliod and the Rocco's coming back, and Francisco Thrasios especially, and Gyruda, of course, how can I forget Gyruda? So a lot of really crazy, unique decks here in this top 17 decks. Really cool tournament. I love that the online space is still really healthy, and that there are really good tournaments being run basically multiple times a month now. It's so good to be a cEDH player in this current era of just having cEDH tournaments all the time, and it's an awesome time to play, and very happy to be able to not only play a tournament like this, but be able to brew and innovate. Definitely curious to hear what y'all think about this tournament and the breakdown in the comments down below this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Remember, if you have any questions or interest in cEDH coaching, interest in the Patreon, interest in the Discord, any of those things, they're in the description of this video. And once again, thank you to Wizards of the Coast for sponsoring this video. Just a reminder, if you want to check out some of the Ravnica Remastered product, you can check a link down below in my description for that. Thank you all for once again showing up. Y'all are amazing, and I'll catch you next time.